TUFF SHIFT. Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of TUFF SHIFT, the podcast where we unpack all that goes into surviving the job and living the dream. My name is Patrick Murtagh, and of course, I am looking at my screen and ring light and microphone and iPad. So now that we're on YouTube, if you see me looking weird or when someone's talking, if you see me look to the side, I'm not judging my guest, all right? I'm literally a one-man machine here. I'm like Bert and Mary Poppins, okay? I'm just like, it's step in time, and I just want to make sure that everything is going great to give you the best interview possible, the best experience here with us at TUFF SHIFT. Not that anyone asks me about that. I just am a very guilty person. Being, Irish Catholic, Central American Catholic, I got a lot of guilt in me. So just getting that out of the way so I can feel better and just start this pre-shift with you. All right. And I'm very happy to start this pre-shift with you because we have a lot of exciting things. First of all, I want to say, bum ba focus. Well, it doesn't matter if you're listening to this, but this, I'll put a graphic up there, is our guest, my friend and former guest of the podcast, Nelson Aspen's book, Kindred Spirits, A Titanic Tale, which she spoke about just a few episodes ago. It's available. You can go to nelsonaspen.com and find out where you can get this book. And he has just been all over this beautiful country and in so many shows all around the world promoting this book. And I got to go the other day and support him at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills. Fancy. Actual Four Seasons, not a gardening supply place in Philadelphia called the Four Seasons, the actual one. And let me tell you, what an experience. This is I think my first time going to like a book signing, a book release. And it was like, there was a press sheet and I was like on the press pass of, being the host of a podcast and being an award-winning singer. I was like, wow, feels legit. I guess I should probably embrace that this is legit. And this is exactly what I wanted to happen with this podcast, is to promote my friends and to be able to experience it in a way I've never experienced it before. And so to everyone at the Four Seasons, specifically their restaurant bar, Kulina, where the event was held, oh my God, chef's kiss. What a beautiful experience. What a beautiful space. Amazing martinis. Just absolutely beautiful. The bartender was phenomenal. The waitress was phenomenal. Everything about it. The people who showed up, there were so many people that turned out to see Nelson and to support him and cheer him on. Getty's Images was there again. So got a few more of those. Keep an eye out. I can't wait to share that with you and just remind you, go see Nelson and support his book. He'll be in New York in July. I'll get those dates correct, doing a live show talking about this book. He's also a cabaret singer and wonderful. So go support Nelson Aspen. This is exactly what we want to do in this podcast, is just continue to check in and see where our friends are and what they're up to and hear about their amazing accomplishments. Next up is another friend of the pod and in real life, Richard Skipper. You may remember him from episode 10. Now, Richard is a cabaret icon and legend. He has been doing it for so long, and he is just such a phenomenal human being, not just in his talent, but in bringing people together, in celebrating other artists and performers. And he's going back to the Beechman Theater, the brand new or reopened Laurie Beechman Theater, where I have performed many times. I've had a lot of my credits from that space. It has been revamped, renovated, and it is open for business. It's on 42nd Street, 42nd and 9th, and it is the basement theater for the newly renovated and reopened West Bank Cafe, where I have also performed and had a few martinis here and there. Go support this wonderful venue and this wonderful space, and go support Richard Skipper on May 30th. He is doing a show called Everything You Wanted to Know About Richard Skipper, but Were Too Afraid to Ask. So this is an audience participation show. You show up to the theater, you scan a QR code, and you just ask a question and he answers them live on stage. This is completely unscripted, and you get to see him at his best, which is off the cuff and live and engaging with people. So that is going to be May 30th at the Laurie Beechman Theater. You can go to The Beechman, that's BEECHMAN.com, and get your tickets. And tell them Large Marge sent you over here. You can use discount code RSC. That's for Richard Skipper Celebrates. RSC 2025 exclamation point. I don't know why I said 2025. So weird, but there you go. Just go check him out. He's phenomenal and wonderful, and I adore him, and I know you will too. All right, are you ready, listeners? We have a tough shift first. Now, I said a few episodes back, if you have any questions that you are just dying to ask someone who's been doing this job as long as I have, send them in. Anything you want to talk about, I'll give you my opinion on it. It doesn't mean that this is, the answer that covers the entire industry, but it is my opinion based on my experience having worked in this industry for 105 years. And finally, we have our very first listener question, and it comes from, appropriately enough, Hysterical Bertha. That's at hysterical_Bertha, who I just mentioned. Like, he had no idea that I had already recorded last week's episode talking about how amazing and supportive he is and how engaging he is. And it'd be wonderful if every listener was as engaging and uplifting as he was, just celebrating the fact that he is doing his part to get this audience growing, whatever, So he had a question, and it's actually appropriate enough because also in last week's episode with Nolen King, we were talking about why some people go out to dinner with people who embarrass themselves. And so again, no idea that was the subject of what we're talking about, and asked this question before the episode dropped. And so it goes like this. I have a friend who is one of the nicest people I know. But at some point along the line, he was trained that it is polite, required, to have a detailed conversation with the waiter about the menu. So whenever it's time to order, he always picks 2 dishes that he wants to hear more about. And then what else the waiter suggests, et cetera, for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time. That's too much time to have a waiter at your table, all right? There's more to the question. He does this at every restaurant. He even does this at restaurants he goes to often. Afterwards, he is always so pleased as punch because he made the waiter's day. Meanwhile, my husband and I are both trying to crawl under the table in embarrassment. So what's your take on this? Having certainly been on the other side of this conversation. I gotta breathe. I gotta do one more breath. Okay, so I certainly have been on the receiving end of this exchange. And I'm going to start out by I want to acknowledge your friend, first and foremost. And I'm going to pretend that I believe that he's doing this for the waiter's sake. I'm going to pretend he believes that what he's doing is not for him, that he actually thinks he's making the waiter's day. So I want to acknowledge you and say thank you for doing what you think is right, because in the grand scheme of things, most people could give 2 shits about their waiter or bartender and go out of their way in any way to make their day better. So I want to acknowledge you for that mindset. Okay? And now that I've acknowledged you for doing what you think is right, I want to tell you, it's not about you. I don't buy that for a second. It is not virtuous. It is not selfless. It is literally all about you. It has nothing to do with the waiter. It's about you feeling good, and you feeling good in front of your friends. Look, I just made that waiter's day. Look, I just made that bartender's day. Look, I treated him as if he were a real human being. Newsflash, I am a real human being, and I don't need that shit. What I need to do is to be able to do my job and assist you. If you want to talk to me about food, oh, we can talk about food. You want to know what my favorite dish is? Porchetta. Porchetta. Any place that I work that has porchetta, I will tell you about the porchetta they used to serve at Cookshop over mm, that charred peach pico de gallo. Finish with that cherry balsamic reduction and just lightly garnished with some arugula or sorrel. Like I will describe food if that's what you really want to hear. But if you already know what you're going to get, why are you occupying my time? That's not nice. That's not considerate, and it's not thoughtful. Because there are a lot of things that I could be doing because it's not about you. Restaurants, like I have said many times over, like life, are a shared experience. There are other tables, other customers, other patrons, other people in the restaurant that need my attention too. All right. So I really want you to kind of put all that into perspective with where you're going, where you are, and where you think you are. This is not a private dining room. This is not, and what you think you're paying for. Like everyone's like, well, I'm getting what's due me. It's like, well, you're getting the food. I'm remembering your allergies. I'm checking on you. I'm refilling your water. That's pretty much the exchange. If we're going to just break it down to a transactional level, you are getting your money's worth every step of the way. And then there's the extras. Yes, let's talk, but let's do it organically, right? Because when it's formulaic, it doesn't feel good. It's not natural. And imagine you've been to those places where the waiter has to come by and they have a checklist of things to say. Hi, welcome to blah blah blah. We're doing sparkling water. We're doing filter tap. We're doing da da da. Here's our oyster selection. Here's these. Blah, blah, blah. Do we have any allergies? And they just bombard you. And I need to get your order all at once. Nope, we can't start with appetizers. I need your order all at once. Right? It just feels like this tidal wave of too much energy and too much at once. It's not natural. So if it doesn't feel good to you, why would you think it feels good to me? All right. So let's do away with that. Let's actually connect, but have it be organic. We don't have to talk about food. You tell me what you're interested in, and I'll be like, that's a great choice. And let me tell you why. And oh my God, you ordered that drink? Okay, let me tell you, this is a liqueur that only we have at this restaurant. No restaurant anywhere nearby. Let it be natural. And also, there are some people who don't want to engage with their waiters and the wait staff. And it took me a long time to realize that it was not dinner theater. All right. I've worked in dinner theater. I've been a singing waiter, but some places it's like, it's not about you, Sean. And as a tenor, that's a hard pill to swallow, but you gotta swallow it and rip the band-aid and do address the task at hand here, all right? Which is you are there with friends. And when you're occupying my time for information you don't care about, hey, tell me about the porchetta, tell me about the Wagyu steak, and you're going to order the salmon, fuck off. Fuck all the way off. Knock this shit off right now. And I'm going to wrap this up by just saying you are not only occupying my time, you are occupying time away that I could be spent with other tables. And they need another round of drinks. There's an issue with their food that I've not been able to address because I'm here playing this menu quiz with you. Who sent you? Did my manager say, are you a secret shopper? Are you a secret shopper? Because I don't work at places with secret shoppers. All right. So you're not the person that the wait staff loves. You're not the person that the bartender loves when you play these games. You're the person we talk about, which is what we're doing right here. Okay. So you're occupying my time. You're occupying other tables' times. You're occupying my time that I could be help assisting the bar, helping to assist runners get the food. And then that will trickle down to why is your food taking so long? Why are your drinks taking so long? Because I've been here talking to you for 10 minutes and not been able to put in the order. So you maybe ordered it 5 minutes ago, but you've been talking to me for 10 minutes, so I've not been able to hit send. And more importantly, you're occupying the time of the people you're dining with that want to be there to be with you, and they're mortified. So just stop. And again, thank you. Because again, I'm going to pretend that I believe you're doing it from a sincere, good place, but you're not. All right. So let's move on from that. I think we've talked about that enough. And actually, I'm just going to say I'll end it this way, just to make sure the point gets driven home. What this all becomes, and what we experience in lots of ways, is a spiritual measuring of the dick. Take it from me. Take it from a gay man who has been around a few blocks in multiple cities. Don't measure your dick on a cold day. Nobody's going to be happy with the results. All right? Okay, we've answered that question. See? Audience questions are fun. I hope I didn't scare anyone away. Let's get to today's guest, who is the opposite of everything I just demonstrated for you. Today's guest is joy and magic personified. Literally, think of joy. Think of magic, think of talent, think of light and love in a walking, talking, singing, dancing, because today's guest is a triple threat, human form. And that is today's guest. I was so excited that he agreed to do this show, and he wasted no time filling out the Google form that I send out to all my guests. So that way I can, kind of collect all their information in one place. And if there's figure out what they want to talk about, he wasted no time getting back to me on that. And then he did a follow-up email giving a timeline of our friendship and all the things, all the places we've ran into each other, the kettlebells we've swung together, which, yes, you've heard me talk about the gym cult that I escaped. He's part of that gym cult. He is part of the joy and love and magic that happens at that gym cult. And he is just one of my favorite New Yorkers. He is so talented, so lovely. He has originated roles on stages in New York. He is a tenor with a capital T, with just the most dulcet tones and a range that goes on forever. He has appeared on stage with some Broadway legends. He is just a phenomenal person. He does it all. He does TV, he does stage, he does voiceover, and he actually got his start performing at a young age. And his start in the restaurant industry kind of married into his performing life. He got to start in Philadelphia, working at a dinner theater. So his career path and his hospitality career path have been somewhat walking side by side and sometimes overlapping, which I cannot wait to unpack with him. And he constantly stays in the work. This is somebody that I admire because he is always in class. He is always honing his craft. He is sharing his accomplishments. He is sharing what he's learning. He is sharing joy. And so much so, like, he is so joyous. He's been not once, but twice a featured trivia dancer on Live with Kelly and Ryan. You know, when they do the trivia question and they have the audience member dancing and flipping and turning and doing all that stuff. And it's always hilarious because when you get a real dancer, they are just, their jaws are on the floor. So it's not just the stages in New York and the audiences in New York that got to see him. Coast to coast, coast to coast, nationwide has witnessed the joy and the exquisite magic. I keep using magic and joy because I just can't think of a better word, and maybe he'll help me just find a word. But just joy and magic. That is Nathan Nolen Edwards. Please welcome to the show. Hello.
Wow. Hello, hello. I just loved taking that all in. Thank you.
I hope you did. Oh, you rearranged your backdrop.
A little bit. I wasn't quite ready for the live 10 minutes ago, but yeah, we have a few more Nathan
I
voices as well.
I love it. He had made a little backdrop when we first started, and then I put him in the little holding room so I could do my opening. And now there's another display of Nathan through the years and through his acting career. I really did get giddy talking about you, and I wrote it out, and I thought I was going to control myself, but it is that joy. Like, we were neighbors. And when I would run into you in the street, and it was just that quick moment of magic, and usually it was either coming home from work, going to work, going to an audition, where sometimes where you just feel the most beat up that New York can treat you, and I see you on the street, and it's just like there's just like a shot of joy. So thank you for doing that. If nobody's told you that, and I know people have, thank you for being who you are, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Truly honored and humbled to be here. And yeah, I loved everything that you just said. And hearing that intro, like, and having to take it all in was so necessary because I think no artist ever thinks that they've like done anything or had any sort of level of success. And I'm pals with like Tony Award nominees, Tony Award winners and things, and there's just like, oh, I haven't done much. And I'm like, you've done a lot. And so I needed to hear everything that you just said in the way that you just said it.
Yeah, we've talked on this show a few times about, we get so stuck and ingrained, whether it be from, what we're told growing up doing community theater, what we're told in college, what we're told after college, like what is success? These are the markers. If you haven't done this, you need to work at this place, you need to take with this person. And we're so obsessed with, the known goals and the known markers that sometimes we don't take in I call them like the little merit badges, like we were little scouts, musical theater scouts. And there's just so many merit badges that you're like, holy shit, I did that. And that wasn't, nobody told me about that in conservatory. Nobody told me about that at Steps on Broadway. And it's like, but nobody can ever take that away. And so we're going to unpack some of those merit badges with you. But before we get started, the same two questions. I asked the first questions are always the same two questions. So, what was your gateway job into becoming the walking, talking, singing stereotype of an actor, performer living in New York City, supplementing the dream? Or I should say, I'm changing. It's not supplementing. It's underwriting. You're investing in your dream while working in hospitality.
Yeah. I have a pal that calls them support jobs, which I just appreciate a little more than survival job because like we're choosing this whole life,
Yeah.
but it's supporting us to take class and to get these headshots and all those things. My gateway, I would identify it as the Bistro Romano Dinner Theater in Philadelphia. I was in college and I took that job. One, it was just offered to me. Like the person found me and was like, somebody recommended you. Would this be something that you're interested in? And I took it knowing that like I couldn't get hired at a restaurant until I had restaurant experience. And this was at a reputable restaurant, but it was at like the banquet hall upstairs. And it was this very silly murder mystery. It was called Murder at the Irish Wake. And it was very predictable. And there were three things that they could choose from. And my order taking was just, you know, do you want the fish? Do you want the pasta? Do you want the chicken? And that was it. But it gave me enough of a restaurant experience to get my next job, also in Philadelphia, where I opened a restaurant called the Walnut Street Supper Club, where I was a singing waiter. And that was where I really got to cut my teeth and used a computer for the first time and had chefs yell at me and had, you know, the owner smoking in the dining room. It was very like Italian mafia, but those are my two gateways into this world.
Lovely. I love it. And it's weird because you need that one job, and it doesn't matter what it is as long as it's even restaurant adjacent. Even if you lie to, we've had guests on this show who have lied about their resume and then ended up in a restaurant and were found out. But it's too late now. You hit the ground running. Let's go. Because I was training at Cook Shop one time, and this was the point in time where it was just like this joke that if Sean trains somebody, they're not going to come back, because I just kind of like I don't know why, but I had a string of people that something happened that wasn't a big deal, and they just were so embarrassed. And there was this one guy who dropped a bottle of wine on the table, and it was his first trail, and it was this wonderful family visiting from Chile. And so I was, translating for him and helping him understand, this is what I'm doing, da 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 da. And so they knew what was going on, and the wine spilled on them. Nobody was hurt. It was just a bottle of wine, which is nothing. And she said something that will stay with me forever. And she said, "Todos comemos por primera vez," which is we all eat for the first time. At some point, we all eat for the first time. And so I let him know. He was still embarrassed. He never showed up again. And it was just like this, I don't need this because you guys choose not to show up. And the restaurant is making fun of me because like, well, Sean trained him. They're not going to survive. But it was this thing to where we do eat for the first time. We all have to start somewhere, and it doesn't matter where you start. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, to quote a amazing Broadway song right there. But I want to get to the next part of it. That's kind of a horrific. I'm sure if that person came on the podcast, that might be up there with one of their tough shifts. But I want to hear about it's about you. So, is there a tough shift in the amazing amount of experience you've had and shifts you've worked? Is there a tough shift that just stands out among the rest as one that you will take with you for every minute of your life? You will just remember this one day and also be grateful that it's over.
Yeah, I think you could write a movie about it. It was Hurricane Sandy time, like day one of Hurricane Sandy. The city is already in a state of emergency, but I get a call and I see that it's from work. I was due in at like 7 p.m. and I think that the call is saying like, don't worry about coming in. It's an emergency. We're gonna close down. But I answer the phone. I am like still asleep. That's how early it was. And they're like, "We're really busy now. Can you hop in a cab right now and get to work and take tables?" And like, maybe in the good people pleaser problem solver that I am, I was there so fast. And as I'm in the taxi on the West Side Highway, I see the water is like coming up to the highway. Like it was terrifying. I'm like, oh my God, like this is it. This is a natural disaster. And I get to that shift and it's already chaos. Like already it's chaos. There's no way we can recover from this. The dining room is full. There's like no ice behind the bar. We've already run out of napkins that are folded. And like, so I'm just like problem solving and like taking all the tables. And I do that for several hours and hours and hours. And then it goes from lunch service to dinner service, but there's not like the clean break that there normally is. I don't get any break for any family meal or like, step off the floor to use the bathroom is totally unheard of. And I'm just busting my butt. And then the power went out and I'm still like crying, like just running off of adrenaline. And I think, okay, like this is my break. Like this is what I can do. And then every single ticket that was in that kitchen at a steakhouse with no power or exhaust fans or anything, there's smoke full in the kitchen. Every single ticket that was sent in was delivered and brought to the tables in pitch dark. And then I'm not even done with this shift yet. And then they said we were going to get hotel rooms at this place, and then they sold all of our hotel rooms because they they needed guests that wanted them, and so they put us in the basement, which was this like nightclub, and like we rolled out cots. It was so gross in there, and then we stayed there, and we were like scheduled to work the next day, but there was no resources, so we're like serving Reese's Pieces and wine, and like I think I made maybe like $300 for that entire thing. Like it was nowhere near enough. It probably wasn't even minimum wage by the time you clocked in all the hours. And like while
Yeah.
during our sleepover, we also had to like clean out the pool and like do all these extra things that I just kept saying yes to because I didn't know any better. But that's my tough shift, and I was thinking about that for a long time. But yeah, it was pretty insane.
There is just so much to unpack there. There that I don't know where to start. It is New Yorkers, for people who outside of New York. If you've never lived in New York, if you've never been in New York during a natural disaster, New Yorkers have this like morbid sense in how they deal with it. Like it's kind of like a bonus vacation. It's like, yeah, no, there's a blizzard coming in, and the MTA has shut down. The waters are right. Chelsea is underwater, but New York is like, oh, vacation. We get to stay home and drink wine. Everything is, oh yeah, we get to stay home and drink wine. And you think, oh, restaurants are shutting down, but people may not be able to get across town to where they would want to go to dinner. But so that means they're going to descend on their local restaurants, and the local restaurants are still expected to be open and be the pantry for these New Yorkers, because who has food in their kitchen in New York, right? You gotta keep the cockroaches and mice away somehow. So for a lot of New Yorkers, restaurants are their pantries, and you're expected to show up. And there's this sick thing as a server to where it's like, oh, a snowstorm, I'm about to make a lot of money. And it's just this morbid way that New Yorkers deal with this. So there's that to unpack. Then there's the fact that, like I mentioned, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes with your server, and with, like, you put yourself at risk to get to this restaurant, to then have to jump through all these hoops, which I'm sure nobody appreciated, and 2 days overnight out of your house, the per diem, all that included, $300. You break that down hourly, that's horrific. So if you're listening, these are the things that your waiter has survived, and it may not be your fault, but I just need you to be aware of what your server has done. That is, wow, my hat is off to you. And I will say also that cook shop, because again, I have no problem in saying what's what, and telling the truth, but I'm fair. I'm not harsh, I'm fair. In that time, Cookshop was closed because Chelsea was underwater, and they paid their staff a base pay for that entire time. So I want to acknowledge that there are good people in the restaurant industry. That is, I'm triggered just listening to that. And where do you think that comes from? That need to kind of, is it something that uh, we're broken down as far as performers that, like, just show up and say yes and do this? Is it something that the industry has, like, broken us down? Like, we should be so grateful to have a job. Where does that urge come to just be like, sure, I'll show up to work, and then afterwards you realize, like, that's a risk to my health.
Yeah, I think definitely the theater industry helps with that, because it hasn't really gone away. I'm constantly overperforming in lots of areas of my life, both in restaurant jobs and then, like even in when I'm in acting class, I'll like take on extra scenes or feel like I'm doing my work and my scene partner's work. Um, yeah, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but it's still very, very present.
Yeah. All right, so we have the tough shift out of the way. What are some cool shifts? Like, what are have you ever waited on a hero of yours, or someone that you admire, or someone that you didn't even realize was a hero until you met them? Are there any cool celebrity sightings that you've had?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I have a bunch that I could rattle off. One is Sutton Foster. She was kind of already regular, and she'd already been very kind to me. But one particular day, it was during like COVID, where you could only sit outside, and I was in a film TV class, and so the scene that I was learning was from her TV series Younger, and so I like was going over my lines and then see her walk in, and at that point, I'm like, do I say something? Do I not say something? And I'm like, oh, so funny. I'm like doing a scene from Younger right here. And she was like, oh, well, if you need a scene partner, I'm right over there. And she was just so like kind and wonderful. And there's been many moments of that where our paths have crossed and she's just been so like kind. And she's so just humble and modest. She's like, just, just doing the same thing we're all doing. And so, yeah, that was a pretty cool shift and a pretty cool moment where I got to share that experience with her. Yeah, and I'm trying to think. There was another one where there was a composer that came in. I was bartending at the time, and it was late, and I ran his card, and then I saw his name. I didn't recognize him by face, but then I was like, "Oh, like I'm a big fan. Like, congratulations on what you've done." And he's like, "Oh, you don't know me," and he really truly believed that. And I was like, "Oh, you're not the person who's done this, 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 and this." And so then we've kind of built a relationship off of that, and that was really cool to be able to say that because there's so many times where I'm like, do I say something? Do I not say something? Do I like break that line? I want them to feel comfortable here. Um, but I've never regretted ever outing myself to someone of
I
being a
think,
fan.
again, when it's just seems to be on theme with what we're talking about today, when it's genuine and comes from a sincere place, because I'm sure you've experienced, and I definitely have, where it's like, so and so comes into the restaurant and this one person just like globs onto them, and it's like, what are you gonna, they're gonna book you just from you annoying them during their meal, whereas, or you could be the person that, just like when I met Robin Williams, and I left it until the very end, and then I was like, just so you know, bum, 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 and had an amazing experience. Like, you allow them to exist, and then you acknowledge, because, like, I think some people do like that, to where it's like, thank you for letting me exist, and not bombarding me with the need to fulfill your celebrity fantasy, but also thank you for then acknowledging me. Like, I think there is a delicate balance, to to doing that, and I'm sure you've run into to lots of people along the way,
Yeah,
both industry like big wigs and friends that you're auditioning with and all that. Like,
yeah, totally. We have one that we share, and I'll tell you that story. When you had to check vaccine cards and IDs for people to sit inside, that happened for a while, and most people were really cool about it. But there was this one guy who was so evil to me about it. And there was some classical singer in South America, and she was very, very famous there. But like, I was going through the motions with everyone, and he told me that I didn't deserve to speak. He was just rattling things off to me and like giving me just the worst treatment ever. And then the next day, uh, someone comes in and I know who it is, and it's Jonathan Groff. And I'm like, can I see your vaccination card and ID? And he was just like, no ego, so kind. He had a movie that was like just released that week. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And he was just so warm and kind and smiley and like treated me like such an amazing human. And so to have those two interactions in a 24-hour period, it meant a lot to have the good one second and be like, yes, there are good people and I'm in a good spot and I do deserve to speak.
and we love Jonathan Groff on this podcast for multiple reasons. He is such a wonderful human being, and it really is at that back and forth to where you are kind of like on edge of like, what is the interaction going to be with? Because yesterday I had this horrific experience and I'm just trying to do my job. I don't need your hot takes on any of this. And then other people where it's like you brace yourself for impact, and then they're like, sure, no problem. I'm happy to accommodate, and I'm happy to reciprocate that with you. Hey there, just checking in. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are, why not leave us a 5-star review and a comment or two wherever you're listening to this from? And don't forget to follow us on social media at TUFF SHIFT Podcast. That's TUFF Shift Podcast. Everywhere. Literally everywhere. And just a reminder, gratuities not included, but tips are always welcome. And you can find our virtual tip jar at tuffshiftpodcast.com. That's TUFF Shift Podcast.com. All right, back to the show. Now, you brought up something in your in when you filled out your sheet about being on the show that struck a chord with me, because I recently had an experience where I was thinking that the possibilities were really good about me booking a summer season, and then it fell through, and I just was so eager to what are that sensation of feeling like you just need to book a job to get out
Yeah.
of hospitality. Like, what is, can you like unpack that? Like, what makes you get to that point to where it's like, I don't want to quit. And what's, sorry, let me collect my thoughts, because they're going all over the place. Who's driving the car at that point? Is it that you want to book a job to fulfill your artistic need? Is it that you want to book a job to keep your agents happy? Or is it just like, I'll literally take any job, I don't care which bus and truck tour it is, just to put the apron down?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think it's the last one. Yeah, there've been so many times where I'm like, I will do this job. I will do this review that does not seem compelling or interesting in any way, and I am going to give it my all to like try to book it so I can get out of here. And then during that contract, then maybe I can figure out the other stuff, the other support side hustles that I can put the numbers together to make enough to keep surviving. But yeah, and I think something else that I may have mentioned is like there's certain jobs that I wish I could take, like just artistically, creatively, but because there's such a short run, like 2, 3 weeks, and like having a really hard time justifying leaving where I'm at now. Because if I left for 3 weeks, like I'd probably be done. There's just no, I mean, I'm working like three people's worth of jobs right now where I'm
Yeah.
at. And so I don't know. I just don't see a world where that could be solved. I think they would need to like really bring someone in, bring them in full time. So there are also sometimes just stories that I'm making, but I do, yeah, I'm really hungry for something right now, and I feel so close sometimes. And sometimes when you don't get it, and you're like, oh, that's really, really like an extra bummer because it means I have to keep doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, it's like you don't know what you want more, and like they could probably make 3 weeks work for this job, but then
Yeah.
it's like, do I want to use that now? Because are they going to be able to make 3 weeks again when I book another? And it's like, where do I fall? Like, how many responsibilities do I take in? Because the more responsibilities, maybe the more compensation, which is great because I have bills to pay, I have rent, I have classes to pay for. But then it's like, but then that takes me out of the running for other shows that may not be financially rewarding, but artistically get me seen by. And it's this delicate balance. So with that being said, because I choose work based on uh, the necessity. What am I trying to accomplish? Like everyone knows, I prefer to bartend, but when I have to take a serving job, because it's easier to swap shifts with other servers, because there's usually more servers and bartenders. So it's all about accessibility. How did you decide that it was time to move away from serving tables and take on a little more leadership role in the restaurant industry, and how have you managed that?
Yeah. Um, I first started doing one management shift a week back in 2018, and that was because my friend who was doing it full time, we had worked together at another place, and I always had her back. And she's like, I need a day off. Like I'm dating somebody that I really like, and he works in a school, so like he needs evenings, and we don't have any time together, and so I need a weekend off. And so I agreed to that one day, and then
Rookie
she left.
mistake.
I know, I know. And then she left, and then I lost that one day management shift. So then I had a couple years of not having to do it, just stepping in here and there, and I was happy with that. And then COVID happened, and the full time manager wine buyer stepped away, and I was kind of like just thrown into it almost. There wasn't any training. There was no set of skills or responsibilities and things, and that was January 2021, and I'm still there, still kind of doing it. And um, I don't know. I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like the need to feel like I need to overperform and take care of things. And I know you've had a bunch of not great managers in your life, and I never wanted to be that. So like I'm so determined to be like the manager with a heart and taking care of everyone. But in an effort to do that, there are moments where I'm just like, okay, the server's not going to that table. I asked them to. They're not going to do it. I'll go take care of that. And then like the phone's ringing or drinks need to be made. Like I'll take care of that. And so it certainly is piling up. But that's a long answer to your question. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now of trying to make sure everybody's taken care of.
Yeah, and it really is a hard thing. Like I mentioned in the past, where, with Anna Marie, who's one of my favorite managers ever, she would say, when it's slow season, when January, February comes around, she kind of doles out shifts, but she goes back and looks and sees how much time everyone has requested off outside of, what is a lot of, but like, I need this, I need to take this day off. I need how many requests you've made versus the people who really have made no request and tries to keep. And I used to think like, that's, sorry that I'm talented or sorry that I have a life. And it used to really in the moment piss me off. But then stepping away from it, which is like, one, how rude to think again, like the person asking the question and occupy my time, that you're the only one in this restaurant. Yes, we took this job for the facility of X, Y, and Z, but it is still a job. It is still a grown up job, and you are required. The restaurant has to function and they need certain things done. So basically, she tries to keep it in ratio to how available you were throughout the year. And that's completely fair to the people who have been more available. And for managers, I will call managers out when they need to be called out, but I also acknowledge that there's a lot more than me you have to work with. There's a lot more spinning plates, and you are doing a wonderful job at that. And I recently had a manager I worked with who I just loved. It was his first time managing, and he was doing a lot of that. And I was kind of like his fairy godfather. I was trying to like show him like when to run drinks and when to let the servers step it up and when to to listen to the general manager and when to listen to your own voice. Because the one thing I didn't want from him was to be burned out, because nothing is killed faster in a restaurant than somebody with hope and ambition, like just like really just a big heart and wanting to make, like, you have to protect that. And with that being said, I mentioned about what a magical, joyous human being you are, and the light you bring into people's life on stage, in audition halls, all over. How do you protect that in the industry that we're in, when you have someone saying you don't deserve to speak, and like, excuse me, I sing a high D. I want to hear this singer from South America. Let me know her range. Let me know what styles of music she can sing. Let me see how her forte is. Like, how do you? But you can't say that. But so, how do you protect the joy that is you?
Yeah.
Both. I mean, let's split that. How do you protect your joy in the restaurant and the magic? How do you protect the artist? And then in the audition world, how do you sustain that? So let's start with
Yeah,
restaurant and then do audition world.
sure. Um, First off, that human, I did kind of flip out on him. I did a tuck jump and then I did a bow and I said, "Yes, sir, absolutely, sir." And I went to a character of like, "Is this like whatever you say?" And I was like so ridiculous. And like the staff was like, "You need to calm down."
They're like, we get it. You did
So
Hello Dolly. We get it.
yes, yes, I was doing my waiter's gallop, and yeah, but I just had to. I was like snapped. But if you're gonna snap, I think that's the way to snap, of being like, okay, I'm gonna be exactly what you want me to be. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but I protect it with a lot of things. I think there's sometimes we compartmentalize, and I know you say like the shift will end, and it will, and like I always remember that even when it's really really hard, I know that somehow 8 hours will go by or so, and the shift will end, and I always keep that in my back pocket. But also like being in acting class on the regular is so so helpful, even when I am living these moments, because I'm in a Meisner studio class, Matthew Corzine studio, and a lot of Meisner people talk about like, when you're in real life, you're wearing like a scuba suit where you're like zipped up, and then when you're in, so you like have all your emotions in here, but you can't really feel them because that's not how society works. But when you're like on stage and in those classes, then you can like unzip, let your emotions out, be your real truthful self. And so having moments where I do get to be like unapologetic, actually truthful me is really, really important for me to exist as a human and artist. Yeah. And knowing that I will have those outlets at some point is always so helpful. And when I started in class, I didn't know anger really. Like I zipped up so much that I was not able to actually be angry or hurt or any of those things, because of years of having to perform this character of myself in restaurant work. And so, and then how do you bring that into the audition workplace? Yeah, it is. It is so challenging. I think continuing to get your reps in, so everything's just like another number of having multiple auditions that you go to every week and cranking out self tapes on the regular. So you have more hours in that than you do in the restaurant life, has been really, really helpful. Like when I've done the spreadsheets of like, okay, I'm in the restaurant for this many hours a week, but that means I need to be an artist this many hours a week. And I'm got to figure out how to make those numbers work.
I've never thought of it that way, and I love it. Even if it's just singing in your bedroom, even if it's just brushing, that's such a beautiful way to think about it, is just prioritizing, be like, all right, I've done this. Now I need to invest back in this account. That's wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And
that.
it's of course. And it was really hard when you've worked with so many burnt out artists in restaurants, or artists that have given up fully. Like I didn't know that some people came to New York to be actors or performers or anything. Like I don't know, thought they came to work in restaurants. And when you really get to hear someone's story, they're like, "Oh no, I went to film school," or "I was an opera singer," but they just got stuck in restaurants. And I get it. And there were
Yeah.
so many times where I thought I was stuck, and now even years down the line of working in them on the regular, like I just don't feel stuck anymore. I'm still in it, and I would like the full time escape, but I feel like I am so much of an actor first. There was a series on my Instagram that I was doing every Sunday where I was in the wine cellar and I just like had
Yes.
the story that I would tell about being an actor in New York City, just to kind of rebrand and reshape things. And that really resonated with a lot of people. And I think it's important to say that because a lot of times when you say you're an actor, an artist, then there's like a validation that the other person wants to get, or what have I seen you in, or like, how can I see you now? And so it's almost scary to say out loud because you know that follow up question is coming. And I'm just trying to get used to like having unique answers to say to people like, you know what, you can check my YouTube channel. I post a lot of self tapes there. You can look at my Instagram and any new events that I'm coming, you bet I will let you know.
The content is there. And I want to acknowledge because I'm a little giddy about this episode because from the opening, where it's just like, oh, we happened to talk about before we talked about that last week and nobody knew. And before this last week's episode came out and you filled out your sheet, there was already some overlapping. So I am enjoying that there just seems to be this where we're on a wave and this continuation of a theme. And I had mentioned, in searching for a job, I started streamlining my resume to reflect a little more like my theater resume. So it's like, here's all my credits. Here are all my skills. Here are all my training. So it's just like a little more streamlined. And you just must have intuited, and on top of sending me back the Google form completely filled out, very generously filled out, you also sent me both your acting resume and, or I should say performance resume, because you are a triple threat, your performing resume and your restaurant resume. And I noticed how there are things that marry the two together. So what is it in your performing life, which I think you kind of touched on, that has influenced your life in the restaurants? And what about your restaurant work has influenced your life as a performer? Like, attention to detail, this and that. Like, I mean, who knows which at one point where the influence comes from? How has that journey been, especially since you got your start in dinner theater?
Yeah. While I continue to study acting, I'm learning so much that acting is human behavior. My teacher Matthew Corazine always says like acting is living and behaving truthfully and fully under imaginary circumstances, and it's a quote that he tweaked from Meisner, but it really really resonates with me. And so, being a trained performer when I'm in the restaurant world, like I'm able to pick up on human behavior like so easily, and I can be a really good listener, and like I get tone and intonation and like all these things. So like I can tell if a guest is having a good day, a bad day, or like if they're there to work, or if it's their 20th first date that they're bringing into the bar and they just want to be coy and like, hey, I think this place looks cute. I'm like, oh, welcome in for the first time. Um, I think that that really has influenced that. And then I think the way that restaurant has helped acting. I mean, I think it's helpful to be able to rattle off specific kinds of wines out there and to have like these little niches that you know how to behave. Like you're like I know how to open a bottle of wine, and I don't have to like act it or pretend it. Like I can like really go through those gestures, so I don't have to use the part of my brain of like, do I know how to do this or not? And so in doing that activity, I can turn off my like editor part of my brain a little bit
Yeah.
more. Um, Also, in improv scenes, if you're ever in an improv class and you recite the specials, you don't have to like reinvent the specials. Like you can literally say the specials that were on the board last night in your improv scene, and it's somehow funny. Like when you're very specific with details and things, it's suddenly funny in a comedic improv scene. I don't know exactly why, but it always works.
Because it's pulling from real experiences that I'm sure people in your class can relate to, and just tying it back to it's all the human behavior, the exploration of human behavior. So that was the perfect answer that I could not even nobody that was the perfect answer. I more than what I was expecting. So thank you for that. And
Of
I
course.
think we've talked about the restaurant enough. I want to talk about you, the performer. You, the which I don't know where to start because I want to just tell you that I'm so upset that I did not get to hear you sing Tobias in Sweeney Todd. But we'll unpack that in just one second. I want to hear, because I mentioned earlier, that you got to work. You got out of the restaurant because you booked a show, and you booked a show working with Broadway royalty. Will you unpack that for our listeners?
Yeah, totally. I really wanted to do this show, and it was my first time using Google Alerts, and I was like, I'm going to find this audition when it's happening. And I couldn't find it. And then a friend happened to send me a message being like, "Hey, they're having auditions for this production of Hello Dolly, and think you'd be right for it." And so I went to the local audition in the suburbs of Philadelphia during a snowstorm on a bus, and I went to that open call, and I prepared so hard for that open call. I was in dance classes every day. I was coaching the material, and I felt so much like me. And so, oh my goodness, I remember being on my couch when that phone rang, and it was a hard New York City audition day, and I still have the voicemail saved because I didn't answer it right away. And I was like, wow, like this is happening. And I just tell you, I did not take a single moment of that entire production for granted. I don't know if we said everything. I did Hello Dolly starring Andrea McArdle, Broadway's original Annie. And it was, yeah, truly a dream come true and the gift that keeps giving. Um, I remember being in tech and Andrea was like having a hard moment and she calls Carol Channing in the lobby and like I see her having a conversation with Carol Channing because she like needed a little help with this one monologue at the end of the show. And I don't know, it was just the most unbelievable experience that I still remember very much to this day. And and Andrea always talks out when she did Jerry's Girls with Carol, and she was kind of feeling like, I'm so over the song tomorrow. Like, I do not want to hear that song. And Carol's like, Andrea, like, that's your song. When Leslie Uggams goes on stage, what are they going to play? And she's like, oh, I don't know. She's like, exactly. But when Andrea McArdle goes on stage, what are they going to play? And she's like, oh, tomorrow. And so that really changed her relationship with that song. And Andrea still sings that song in every single cabaret that she does. And she's such a cheerleader and fan of mine in like a big way. I will be in the corner after one of her shows, waiting patiently to maybe say hello. And then her fans are very intense and they're like, I know you from somewhere. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I did Hello Dolly with her back in 2015. Like, yes, yes, that's how I know you. And then I'll say my name and she'll hear it and she goes across the room away from all of her fans, be like, Nathan Edwards, like, so good to see you, and hugs you. She's like, why are you not on Broadway right now? And she is still like just this huge, huge cheerleader of mine. And yeah, I just love her so much. And I cannot believe that we like had a chance to work on a stage together. And yeah, and there's a big photo shoot of me and her on closing night, and it's just so silly and ridiculous. And yeah, and it's one of those moments like when you think you're not successful, you have it's not even like performing on the stage with her, which was amazing, but it is like the moments of her leaving her fans to like make sure that she gets a moment with you and to be so warm and wonderful and to share all of her stories so generously. Like that does feel pretty successful that I get to have those moments. And yeah, and they're never gonna go away.
Yeah, and they always say, like, they warn you about meeting your heroes, and then you actually have a wonderful experience. And not only and that's one of the merit badges. No one can take that experience away from you. No one, no matter what happens for the rest of your life, that is your experience completely. And also in not keeping things to herself. All the wisdom that Carol Channing shared with her, she shared with you. So though tomorrow isn't necessarily either of our songs, we have those little wisdoms that's like now that lives on. That generosity of spirit and of talent and of knowledge to really kind of form our community a little tighter. That is such a beautiful story. And thank you so much for sharing that. Now, are there any, I mean, I assume when you did Tobias that that was a dream role of yours.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so
Totally. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I want to talk about it. I want to know, like, are there other dream roles as well that that you've gotten to do, or what's still on the horizon? And I know that there's another Tobias in you, so I would love to see that happen very much. But I'll let you share your experience and not me being a Yenta and telling you what I want for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first time I got to do Sweeney Todd was actually the summer after my senior year of high school, and it was this like kind of community theater production. And they gave me the offer because I had to go to my ballet recital. And they gave me the offer of Anthony. And I was like, that's so weird. Like, I've been only doing the Tobias material. And
Yeah,
then on my way, and I'm like, I guess I'll accept it. Like, I'm happy. It's a role, it's a credit. And then on the way to this recital, my phone rings. And then the person who's doing the casting, she's like, actually, we'd rather you do Tobias if that's okay. And I was just so relieved, and I was so anyway, that production was not everything I had dreamt of because I think our director quit, maybe our music director quit. There were not enough technical elements to keep the show afloat, but it happened, and it got me a Tobias under my belt. And then my senior year of college, they announced that they were doing it, and I almost didn't even want to audition because I was like, I can't not get this. Like, if I don't audition, then at least I didn't lose it. But like, and then I decided to go the opposite way, and I doubled down. I coached with every person in Philadelphia that I could have. I was in every studio class. I even asked somebody who had directed the production if he would coach me on it. He's like, oh, I don't really believe in audition coachings. I think you should just be in class and then just like be in the moment. And he gave me a very generous phone call. But instead of listening to him, I coached that material inside and out. And and I knew when I did the monologue in the callback, I was like, I really think that this is mine. Like, I don't think anything else I can do. Like, I don't think there's another person that could do the truth that I just did, which I never really thought about. And and I did the monologue first, and then I had like an hour, and then I had to do all the singing stuff. But I just like ripped my voice out on that monologue at the end. It's like Razor. And sorry if that blew out your headphones. But yeah, and anyway, I worked so hard for that audition and to see my name on that cast list that went out at like 2 a.m. in an email. And I was at like a college party, and people are announcing the cast from the other room, and I'm like, shut up. Because I think people were making it their Facebook status. And so like one by one, I was like hearing it from my roommate, and I'm like, I have to check my email right now. And I got to see it like Nathan Nolen Edwards Tobias, and it was just yeah one of the greatest moments ever. And the production was so great. We had an amazing director, a wonderful music director, who I just would love to work with again. And the my Mrs. Lovett, there was a grad program at school, and so she had worked professionally for a number of years, and it was just such this up level feeling of being like, I am working with this fancy Rebecca Rich who is on cast recordings, and she gets to be my mom. And yeah, and it was truly a dream come true. I went on really long about that. Other dreams of the future, you wanted to hear about that? I
yeah,
would love to be Nigel Bottom in something rotten. Um, I That's like the material I always go in for. I keep thinking I'm gonna get it one day because I feel so right for it. But I've never really gotten into the room with sides. I've just gone to the initial auditions. And then storyteller number two in Shucked the musical. Uh, it's just this. Gray Henson did it on Broadway, and it is light magic joy, and he's so funny. And I did a self tape for that tour that went out, and the person who originated storyteller number one, I went to school with and saw her in the halls of Ripley Greer, and saw her 2 days in a row. And on the second day, I was like, I have this self tape due. I know I haven't seen you in a while, but like, would you be able to help me with it? And she did. And even though I did not move forward with that, like having that moment, like that was another one of those successes of like, cool, we're in New York City, and I'm working with the person who originated this role on Broadway. And I was at her first performance. I was at her like
wow.
Broadway debut. And it was really cool to have that moment in the studio making that self tape. And yeah, so in a way, it felt like a little mini dream come true having that moment.
New York is such small circles, and you really do run into the people you look up to. You run into the people you were just cheering on Broadway. I actually have a brunch story involving Gray Henson that has nothing to do with me working or him attending the brunch. But do you remember the Grange
Of course, in
in
Harlem.
Hamilton Heights? Oh my God,
Yeah.
I love that place. So I was there with a friend of mine, and we were having brunch. We stayed a little longer than we should have. We left our table. We went to the bar. There were like some people who like grew up in the neighborhood. It was these three siblings, and they were sitting there. The radio was playing. It was a beautiful experience. We were all just everyone was having just an amazing time, and so we just kept having rosé. And then we were talking to these three siblings, and they're telling us about how the neighborhood changed, and we're talking about how music changed, and just having this amazing time. And then it was like time to stumble 20 blocks north and like time to go home. It was just like this beautiful day, and then I run into to him on the street, and I just immediately I'm like you're Mean Girls and just had this horrific to where I was just like not in my right mind, but I was also like Sean was in there being like, shut the fuck up and let him go home because he was clearly leaving the matinee and trying to get home. And I was like, you're amazing. And he's like, thank you. I'm like, and you can tap dance. And he was so gracious. And it's like, I mean, I remember it vividly, like not even through the blurry eyes. I remember it like clear as day. And there was a part of me screaming like, shut up and let him go. So that is how close the circles are, whether it be an audition or after a Sunday fun day. That's New York people. Um, but I'm glad you didn't take the advice of that person going back a few minutes of that person who said don't train your roles, because I had a very influential voice teacher who did musical theater. He did tours. He also did opera, and for him, his secret was he treated musical theater like opera. If you have a dream role, do you have the score? Do you know
Mhm.
the role? Because then you can go into the audition, which it's like, yes, everyone's given sides. You're allowed to hold the sides. They're holding space for the fact that you may be looking at this for the first time or it's just a few days. But when you go in and they don't know the hours that you spent and you just naturally do it and you walk in and be like, oh, I guess I'm just naturally this role. No one needs
Yes.
to know. No
Yeah.
one needs to know. If you can make it seem like, oh yeah, this is I'm a little sick. Let me just see what I can do. And they're like, ah! And it's just like do that. And I'm so glad that you shared that because it is worth investing the time. It's yes, it's fair to say I've only had 2 days to prepare this role, but if you know you want to do a role, start learning it now. Now, as we wind down, I want to just check one more thing with you, and that is something we talked about. Tell us about the experience of being the trivia dancer on Live with Kelly and Ryan.
It was so wild. I actually, it was it was a virtual trivia dancer. And so I thought the first time that I was sending in my audition tape, I didn't know I was sending in the tape that they were going to be airing live. But it was great because the producer, his husband was a trainer at the gym we mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah, at Mark Fisher Fitness. And he was doing these virtual dance parties, and I attended every single virtual dance party, and I went full out every dance party. It was just on Zoom in my living room, but like I had my costume ready every week, and I was doing kicks and stretches and turns, and I like my energy. I wore a heart rate monitor for it, and my heart was at like 99% of like what its full capacity is. Like I was going so full out every time, and so they used a portion of that for their commercial for live trivia dancers. And when I said consented to that, they're like, "Oh, would you like to be one?" And it was so awesome because not much was happening during the fall of 2020. It was, um, and
fall of 2020.
yeah, I know. Yes, the fall of 2020, autumn 2020. Yeah, and I had this thing, and it was so cool that Ryan Seacrest and Kelly Ripa were looking at me on that screen, and they're like, "Oh wow, like he didn't fall out of that pirouette. Oh, good kick. Oh, like we think he's danced before." And then just having so many people reach out to me. Some of them were just strangers that liked the way I kicked and
Yeah.
found me on the internet and sent me messages. And then it was, high school friends, my old dance studio growing up, like all these people reaching out and being like, wow, that was so joyful. So I did that the first time, and then I was the first trivia dancer of, I think, 2023. All the years are blending together, but they were
Yeah.
still doing virtual trivia dancers at the time, and they were recording the New Year episode. Not to give away things, but they were pre-recording it like in October, November, or something. Um, and so they needed a trivia dancer to air really early, and they didn't have anybody in the queue, so they reached out to me again, asking if I would do it again. And it felt so cool to be, the guy that they can depend on, that like can crank out a fun, silly video.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was great. It was really it's fun being on national television and having people see your name and your face and getting that little bit of recognition and just validation that I'm here and I'm doing this.
And it's not just about the booking, it's about the rebooking, all right, people?
Yes.
He was called back for a second round. I absolutely love that. And I think the first one is the one that I was surprised because I actually that was part of my COVID thing is I watched that. So I think that one I saw with nobody made me aware that it was going to be you, and I was like, I know him. And then I think I saw the second one because I think you had a little more notice, obviously, and you told people like you might want to keep an eye out. And it is always funny when they do get somebody that is a dancer and they fangirl out over you. So I'm so glad that you had that experience, and I'm so glad that people got just even the slightest taste of the magic and joy that I'm talking about. So before we go, there's two things we have to take care of. The first is I want to know, how can people find and support and uplift and cheer you on? How can they hire you to be a trivia dancer for themselves? How do people reach out and keep up with all the adventures of NNE, as we so lovingly know your monogram?
Yes, yes, totally. I mean, I have a website that I keep up to date, which is nathannolenedwards.com. Nolen spelled with an E. It's a family name, so that's Nolen. And then I'm very active on Instagram and trying to cross post on TikTok. I really do kind of enjoy the social media game of sharing the parts of yourself, like sharing the good parts of yourself and sharing the spectrum of yourself, and trying to have the nuggets of, yes, I'm an actor. These are what I'm doing as my journey of an actor. It's not always the bookings. Most of the time, it's the process and sharing my unique journey in this and hoping that it can help others. And so that Instagram handle is just my full name, Nathan Nolen Edwards. Again, that's Nolen with an E. Yeah, and you'll find
Perfect.
everything there, and all my future things will be posted there many, many times.
That's wonderful. And of course, because you have listened to this podcast before, you've done your homework, which I appreciate. And I want to know, as we know, bad news always makes its way back faster than good news, if at all. And so that's why I like to go out of my way when I have a good experience at a restaurant as a customer, when I have a good experience at work with a coworker, or even just a guest. I like to let management know, hey, our server today, our bartender, boom, boom, boom. Hey, I was in the weeds and so ran my drinks and so stepped up. Or, this table just did X, Y, and Z. And I want to see, can we send them something? I like to help get good news to the people that need to hear it, which is why I want to know, in your life, who is somebody that has made a tough shift easier for you that you'd like to shout out here today?
Absolutely. I was thinking of so many different colleagues I wanted to talk about, but I'm actually going to say a regular of my restaurant now that we hung out outside of the restaurant for the first time this week. And her name's Catherine Misley, rhymes with Wisely, and she's a very accomplished performer. And when she comes into the restaurant, the chaos can be happening, and I don't feel it. Like, she
Mm,
grounds me, and she just wants to talk, like, life, business, her hardships, and we're just so connected on like this human level. And she has worked so much. She originated the role of like Professor Umbridge on the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and then she did it in London for a while. And so she has so much experience that she's willing to generously share with me. And she believes in me so much, and she says that every single time that she sees me, and she knows that I am out there in class and auditioning and learning as much as I can and getting my face into as many rooms as I can. And I kind of have that encyclopedia brain of like casting directors and faces and things. So when somebody walks in, I'll kind of be like, oh, that's this person or that person that was on that show. And she loves that about me. And so it's nice to have somebody that embraces all my little quirkiness that I have, and that she's somebody that like I if I had her career, I think I would be very, very happy. And also knowing that it's never done. Like once you still have all those credits and things, you're still trying to find that next job, and it's not going to go away. And that's why we have to meditate and make peace with it and like do the things to take care of us as human beings all the time so that we can be these full out artists that may not always be working an artist contract.
Exactly. You are still an artist, regardless of where you are or what you're doing to pay the bills. Will you say her name one more time?
Yes, Catherine Misley.
There you go. Catherine Misley, thank you so much for everything that you do to make this world a little bit better. This episode has been for you, and clearly the world needs more people like you in it. This has been another episode of Tough Shift. And just remember, tough shifts build character, and character is what brings your story to life. Take care. Tough Shift was created and hosted by Sean Patrick Murtagh. It was recorded on Riverside and distributed with Buzzsprout. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and maybe a comment or two. And remember, tough shifts build character, and character is what brings your story to life.